Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good morning out there to all my off-the-shelf listeners at Blog Talk Radio and over at Rainbow Soul and iTunes, and you guys tune in to Off the Shelf so many ways. I was telling our guests, usually on Saturday morning, I'm running around like crazy, and then also marketing the show again right before it launches, and I'm after the show as well to try to get the guests as much traffic as I can. But I have this static on my line, so I've got to try to ignore the static. You know how things happen in your life. You got to don't get distracted, ignore the static, and just stay focused. The guest was kind enough to tell me that she didn't hear it on her end, but there is this constant loud static on my end, and I'm hoping that it's not carrying over. But as we've done here on Off the Shelf for, we're in 13 years, you guys. As we've done here on Off the Shelf, and you know, in 13 years, we've had a lot of guests on here. Essence, New York Times best-selling authors. We've had multi-millionaire business owners on Off the Shelf. We've had a lot of things happen unexpectedly, and one thing I've learned, and I share with you all, I'm telling you, you have to keep going forward. There was a saying they used to say in the 1960s, keep your eye on the prize. Don't start getting focused on the distraction, like this nagging noise in my ear. Just keep going forward, and that's what I'm going to do, because I want to give our guests an amazing show as we have here at Off the Shelf. And to our listeners, I want to start by thanking our loyal listeners for tuning in here over 12 years. At the beginning, there was no way I thought I would be within 12 years in to a radio show. But I started a few shows ago with a quote that I just wanted to drop in your spirit. And the quote for today is, love will find and heal the most brokenhearted, disappointed, abused, and ashamed. Love has come. There is no turning back. And that is from my new book, Love for Over Me. Love will find and heal the most brokenhearted, disappointed, abused, and ashamed. Love has come, and there's nothing that can do. The greatest of these is love, and there is no turning back. Welcome to our February the 11th Off the Shelf show. I want to say Happy Valentine's Day in advance for those who celebrate Valentine's Day. And you don't need to be in a relationship to enjoy Valentine's Day, because you can always love you, and that's something that's the beginning of us loving other people, loving ourselves. I hope you'll treat yourself, whether you're in a relationship or not, to a fabulous Valentine's Day, and always love yourself. And I encourage you to pick up a copy of Love for Over Me. It's in ebook and print format. You can get it at anywhere. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, ebooks. You can get it at Amazon.com, Walmart, in the library. If you don't see it on the shelf, just ask the clerk. Tell them you want to get a copy of Love for Over Me by Denise Turney, which is me. That's my pen name. And they can order a copy for you, because Love for Over Me is carried by the largest book distributors in the world. And then if you'll just send me a line and let me know how you enjoyed Love for Over Me, I think it will be a positive change to your life, and not just a great entertaining read. And now let us go and meet our very special off-the-shelf guest. And our special guest today, I'm so honored to have her, Mary Walker, with us. She is a sorority sister of mine, Sigma Gamma Rho, and I reached out to her, and she was so gracious, and she said yes, she would appear on Off the Shelf. Most of our guests actually reach out to me and request to be on Off the Shelf, but I reached out to Mary. She was gracious and said yes. And we have another thing in common. I realized when I was doing the research for the show. She lives in Ohio. I was born in Ohio. And this Ohio resident, she's the author of the book Never As Good as the First Time and Not Quite What It Seems. Mary is also a freelance writer and editor. She's really using her passion, and she's online. I encourage you can go over and check her out online, even as you listen to today's show. And her website, if she has her own, I'm going to ask her to give it to us, but this is the website that I found when I was doing my research for the interview. It's It's /author/MARI. She spells her name with an I, not a Y. MARIWALKER. We're so honored to have Mary here. Again, I asked you Rose over on Off the Shelf Book Talk Radio this morning. Welcome to Off the Shelf, Marie.
And Denise, thank you for having me. I'm just really excited that you chose me for today. The prelude to Valentine's Day. I thank you for taking the time out and inviting me to your show.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad to have you here. I'm really trying to push through this static, you guys. I wish you could hear it. You can hear how on my side, but I'm not gonna let it distract me. It is a blessing to have you here with us. Do you have a website like marywalker.com? Do you have a website with a more direct URL that you can share with our listeners so they can bookmark it, go and visit you, or whenever they want to learn about your new books that are coming out months and years from now?
Actually, I'm working on that. I've changed a lot of things, so it's not up at this time, but they can Google my books to find out where they are. They're pretty much everywhere. Still at Barnes & Noble, and of course on my author's website, or my publisher's website, as you so graciously just announced. And they can use that website. It's on Amazon. Books for both on Amazon. They can get them in paperback or ebook. So I'm very excited about that. And those books are like 6 and 8 years old, but they're still selling. So, I'm really happy about that.
That is, you know what? That's a testament to your talent and your dedication to your craft. As you continue to hone and sharpen your craft. Now, Mary, this is a question I ask every guest. The first few questions I ask every guest who comes on Off the Shelf before we dive into your book, so our listeners can get a little background on our guests, so they feel like they know them by the time we start talking about the book. So before we go into the show's questions, can you tell Off the Shelf listeners where you grew up and what life was like for you growing up as a kid, Mary?
Sure. So I have a huge family. It's very large. My mother had 9 children. My mother and father, they had 9 children. Even to my aunt, they also had big families. One of them had 13 kids and one had 11.
Wow.
I was actually born in Atlanta, so I'm really not Atlanta, but I was born in a little county called Raleigh County in Goshen, Georgia. And so that's where my roots are. A lot of my family is from Georgia and Florida. But I grew up in Columbus, and, with our large family. My mother was a reader. She used to gather us together, like before we went to bed, and she would always read to us out of a big book. And I loved my mother's voice and how she could paint a picture while she was telling us those stories. And I remember when I was quite young, she was telling us this one particular story, and it was so descriptive. I wanted to see the pictures. So I climbed up into my mom's lap, and I was like, let me see the pictures. And I was surprised that there were no pictures in the book. It was all words. And so that's how I fell in love with words. I realized you could draw worlds and paint pictures with just words, and you didn't have to have any drawings to tell a story. So I credit my mom telling us those stories with me falling in love with words and books and writing. Always wanted to write from a really young age. I can remember scribbling, tearing out the backs of blank pages from my mom's book. She wasn't too happy about that, but I wasn't concerned about that at the time. I just wanted to write. And I remember scribbling on those pages and gluing them together with bubble gum or trying to sew them together with a needle and thread. And I would take my work to my mom, and I would say, look, Mom, I wrote a book. And she would just, gush over it like it was the best thing in the world. She Mary, that is so good. I can see what you're doing. Isn't that pretty? So she kind of just, with those words, she just kind of made the desire to be a writer blossom in my heart. So I really credit her with that. And then my dad, he was a storyteller. He would tell us stories about how he grew up down south, and he had this laugh that you didn't even have to know what was funny. You would walk into the room with him, and he would be, if he's cracking up about something, he just told it, and then people would just walk in the room, and they would start laughing, not even knowing what he had been talking about. But because of my mom's reading stuff, and because of my dad's storytelling, it just sparked a flame, within me, and I just knew that I wanted to be a storyteller and I wanted to be a writer. So that's pretty much, what got me started on believing that I could write books.
So from that kind of led into my next question. So from the time you were a child, you knew you wanted to, that was something that you definitely knew you wanted to be a writer. Because a lot of people say they didn't know. They wanted to do something else, and then they kind of stumbled into writing.
Nope, I absolutely knew. I was always a lover of the written word, and I absolutely knew even before I could write formally, and I was driven. I always knew that I wanted to write. So,
okay.
It was just a gift, I believe, a God-given gift that He placed in me as a young child, and I'm just blessed to have seen it come to fruition.
So tell us, Mary, before we talk about your book, go into your books again. So your mother read to you. She put you on her lap, and you wanted to see the pictures. There were no pictures. You started writing your own stories, and she encouraged you. How old were you then, and then how long was it, Mary, before you actually, other than writing those children's stories, how long between the time you knew you wanted to be a writer and you actually wrote and published your first book?
So that was when my mom would read to us. I was probably around 4 and 5, when I started to scribbling. So of course I wasn't published at 4 or 5 years old, although I used to go to my mom when I was around 12, when I was told I was going to be the world's youngest published author. Now some children these days have been published, but that really wasn't heard of back then. The publishing was a whole different industry, back when I was growing up than what it is now. There weren't a lot of people of color being published at any age. But anyway, so I was a small child then. I wrote all through high school, still with this dream of being published. Got married, had some children, and then after my divorce, having to work for a living because my husband pretty much was the provider. And when we split up, I had to work to take care of the children. Had some things happen. I lost the job, and even though I had been writing all my life, some things I finished, but I know you've heard a lot of authors say they have a lot of projects they didn't finish. That is true of me as well. But I had this one story in my mind that I wanted to finish, and so when I lost the job, I sat down at the computer. So a couple of other things happened, like I started freelance writing for a local magazine, and I wrote a story about a particular person, and it was probably like a 3-page article. And when I wrote all those things about a person that I didn't know, she loved, what I had written about her. I said, if I can write all this about a person I don't know, I should be able to write within my heart and write a story. So I sat down with this thought in my head about something a story I wanted to tell. And I sat down at the computer, and 3 days later, I had a 270-page book that would later become the Everest.
Wow, 3 days?
work that.
Oh, my goodness.
170 pages, between getting the kids what they need and all that, I just constantly worked. And it really shocked me that, I looked up and I was like, I finished. I've finished this book. And so at that time, self-publishing wasn't the big deal that it is now either. A lot of people were, the internet was just coming up, and a lot of people were writing stories and putting them up on the internet. They really didn't have a way to put them in book form at that time, but I always knew that I didn't want to self-publish. That was the other thing. I always knew that I wanted to write a manuscript and submit it to an agent and get that agent to sell my book to a big publisher. I always knew that that's what I wanted to do, so I did not want to try even the fledgling versions of self-publishing at that time. So I started out, getting a list of the agents who had agented authors who were writing was similar to mine. I made a list of them and, did some research because there was really nothing online about how do you submit to an agent, how do you write a query letter. I didn't know anything about that. There was really no one to talk to about that. So I stumbled up on a couple of sites that had a little bit about it, like on college websites about how to write a query letter. So I sat down and practiced writing that, what I wanted to say and all of that. Really wasn't too confident about the process. I heard that, when you first submit to an agent, you get a lot of rejection letters,
Yeah.
Stories of the most hundreds of rejection letters and never getting accepted and the frustration of that. So I finally decided that I was just going to write what was in my heart and describe my story the best I could in 3 paragraphs. You have to give them the beginning, the middle, and ending, and then tell them why I thought that my book should be published. And I did that. One of the people that was an early inspiration to me was the late Mr. Elan Harris. Now, he was yes, he was such a nice person. I mean, even though he was a 10-time New York Times bestseller,
yes,
he was one of the most down-to-earth people that I've ever met. I mean,
okay.
how I connected with him was on the back of his book he had an email address. So, if the audience doesn't know who Mr. Elan Harris is, he was the first man who wrote about the gay life, and he was the first black man to write about it.
Yes.
And the story
in novel form. Yeah, he was. Yep.
And his stories transcended the gay life. They spoke to you no matter if you were gay or straight. So I fell in love with his characters, and I remember him saying on the jacket of one of his books that he wasn't going to write about these particular characters anymore. He was going to move on. And I thought, like I said, I'm going to send him an email and tell him how much I enjoyed his characters, and just tell him I didn't want to see them go. I hoped he would bring them back at some point. And so I did. I sent him that, and he sent me an email back right away and said, thank you. People like you are the reason that I'm where I'm at. And I was shocked, that I got that email right.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure that it was really him, But after he wrote me that back, I sent him a question. I said, I have loved writing all my life, but I'm having this one particular problem. I think all my characters sound like me, even though males, I think they sound like me. How do you get your characters to sound different? I said, I'm just a wannabe writer. I said, I'm just a wannabe writer, seeking advice from somebody who's as great as you are. And he immediately wrote me back again. He said, you're not a wannabe writer. You're a writer that hasn't been discovered yet. So, that's what I want you to think of yourself as. And he also gave me a one-line piece of advice that kind of set me free in my writing, and I'll never forget him for that, even though he's given me a lot of other advice over the years. But the one thing he said is, let your characters tell the story.
That is good advice. And you know what? I thank you for sharing that with our listeners who themselves are maybe writers. If you're a painter, you're painting out, everything's about relationships and story. Let your characters tell the story. Wow. You know how many writers tell me that they hear their characters talking to them? Some, they'll dream about their characters. Let your character, because I think our characters are a part of us. Let your character tell the story. Oh, what a wonderful story about Elin Harrison. You meet people that you would think they would see themselves way above you, but they don't. Those are just us projecting the way we expect people to think, or the way we might think if we were in that position. But everybody isn't the way we would expect them to be. This says, I got to get into your book. This says at your Facebook page, though, and you kind of launched into this when you were, and I so thank you for what you shared. Especially, I hope people walk away with that. Let your characters tell the story. What Elin Harris shared with you. Now, at your Facebook page, you're described as someone who takes risks. I want to ask you this. You wrote this book in 3 days, so I think the question's already been answered. But was writing your first novel, just sit down and write it. You had a lot going on. That's another reason why I asked you, from the time you knew you were a writer to when you first wrote the novel, how much time, because life doesn't stop for us just because we're going after a dream. Life doesn't stop for us just because we I think some people think people who achieve a dream or a part of their dream, because it never ends. It never ends. Even like what Oprah's going on 60 Minutes now, it never ends. You never get to a place where you say, okay, I won all these awards, I did whatever, sold a lot of books, have so much money in the bank now. Life never ends. Life never dies. So you got to keep going. But other things happen, distractions occur. You can either focus on the distraction and let it lead you, or you can keep your eye on the prize and keep going forward. So you had things that came up in your life. You became a mom. You got divorced. You got laid off from a job. These are things that some of us let stop us or derail us. I have to ask you, you didn't do that, so kudos to you for that. But then you actually had all that going on in your life, Mary, and you had to sit down and write this novel, and I'm amazed that you did it in 3 days. But was sitting down and writing it with everything else that was going on in your life, did it feel like a risk at the time to actually stop what you're doing, write a novel? You had no guarantee you were going to make money from it. Did it feel like a risk of sorts to you?
Absolutely, it's a risk in more ways than one. It was a risk, of course, because you're putting time and focusing on how you're going to do your work out there, and also how you're going to continue your life, feed your kids and all of that, while pursuing your dreams. So yes, it absolutely is a risk in that sense, but it's also a risk in, will people like what I write? So I wrote a book. Who's going to buy it? What will they think about what I wrote? And so it's a risk that way too, because most people pour their heart and soul into what they're writing. And I don't think that people who are critics understand the process, understand what they really think about what they're putting out on the market. Because once you put it out there, it's out there. So if people don't like the stuff out there, you know what I mean? So if they're really critical and they're really saying your book, it's like a movie that's saying, it's going to be known for being bad, or it's going to be known for being good, or, whatever it is that the critics say about it, that's what it establishing yourself that way, and then it's, once you're there, can you stay there? You know, can you be a success at what you love to do? So it's not always cut and dry like that, because like you said, life goes on, distractions come, many distractions come, especially when you're pursuing your passion. Everything comes your way to stop you. And with me, after I got the agent and sold the 2 manuscripts, I thought I had arrived. I thought, I'm here, you know, I'm going to have this career in writing, because I was fortunate enough to land Elaine Coster as my agent, and she had also agented, writers like Victoria Christopher Murray.
Okay.
And also Kimberly Lawson Willoughby. So I thought, you know, I've arrived to kind of represent me. But unfortunately, she became ill and passed away. She was in school for me, and she was such a great mentor. And, you know, one of these days I'll tell the story about how I got her, but, you know, we'll take up too much time. So you know, after she passed away, she had also been an editor-in-chief at a large publisher, the American Library in England, before she decided to hang that up and become an agent. So I was very happy that I had gotten her. So when she passed away, it was kind of unexpected. I didn't know that she was ill, and she was very missed in the industry. It was a very big loss in the industry. So, you know, people are texting me saying they can't hear me because of the static. So, you know, I don't hear it. I hear you, but they're saying they can't hear me.
Okay. Let me see. Then that you know what I'm going to do, and I really hate to do this. I'm thinking the whole time that the line is clear when I checked in. Let me see if it's on my end, because the death of radio is silent. But I'm going to have to hang up my phone and see if I can dial back in and see if it's my end. If not, it may be on the Blog Talk Radio side. The show's going to probably go dead when I hang up the phone. Right. So, but if there's this much static that I'm hearing, then they're not probably able to hear. So let me hang up and try to dial back in. I was going to ask you to give a brief synopsis of your book, but the show's going to disconnect. So let me hang up and dial back in real quickly.
Okay.
You know, it's Blog Talk. I think it's on the Blog Talk Radio side. It does sound better, but I still hear the static. I'm going to keep going, but while I'm going, I'm going to reach out for support to them, because we're into the middle of the show now. I can't stop the show at this point. I think it's on their end where the static is coming from. I thank you for your patience. Apologize to our listeners and to everybody for that. What we can do, if you're open to it, is reschedule you in the future. But go ahead and do this show and then reschedule you for the future, because I want to make sure you get a clear, good airtime. But can you, we've got 30 more minutes to go, and we have listeners who tune in from all over the world, and I don't want to just hang up the phone because of the static. Can you give us a brief synopsis of your novel, Never as Good as the First Time?
Sure. So, Never as Good as the First Time is the story of Denise Turney, the lead character, who has been, she's been a Christian. She was married to a Christian. She had 3 kids and she loved them very much. Life happened. She got a divorce and got a job, working at a warehouse, and happened to run into somebody that she had a crush on in high school. A very handsome, guy that she always wanted to have something with, and it never quite happened. Well, at this point in time, they're both available. They get together, and she's like on cloud 9 at first because she thinks that this guy is the guy of her dreams and everything's going to work out great. But he's not who he, purports to be when they first meet. She finds out later through a party that they both go to. In fact, the guy's name is Zane Blackman, and Zane has a party where he takes her to, and he's always going up and down the stairs, and she finds out that he's dealing drugs. But by that time, she's so involved with him, she really doesn't know about that life, and she doesn't know how dangerous it is. So, it's all about how she gets entangled with Zane Blackman and his antics with the drug life that eventually pull her in, and both of them eventually become users. So it's all about how that impacts her life, her children's life, and how she is she able to disengage from the destructive path that Zane was, leading Zane took to her.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more? I know you were talking about when giving your synopsis of your character, but where is Sammy? I hope I'm saying her name right. Sammy Collins. Where is she from? How old is she at the start of the story? And then I want to ask you some questions about her and her minister husband.
Okay, so Denise, she's probably in her late 20s. The same with Zane. Where she's from, I kind of leave that vague, but she is from the Ohio area. And she, she was brought up in a Christian household, kind of led a sheltered life, really didn't know anything about the streets and all of that. So she was so naive, when it comes to that life. So she's totally unprepared for Zane, who's street smart, good looking, knows how to talk. She's an excellent lover, which she finds out. She does things with him in that area that she never did with her husband. He just totally sets her free in that arena. And so, that kind of life can be intoxicating and addicting in and of itself to be introduced to a lifestyle that you've never had before, which seems fun until the dark drug type issues come in. So she's young, and her children are young as well, so she's kind of making mistakes with her children in engaging with Zane, but just like the rest of us, we can only do what we know to do at the time, and so there's no, people have said it a lot lately, there's no manual on how to raise children, there's no manual on how to raise yourself, really, when you're a young adult, mother, there's nothing in there about, what's good behavior, what's not, so you kind of wing it no matter what area you're in, so...
How long? But you mentioned Zane, and I was going to ask you what was it about him that caught Sammy's eye. But how long, before we go to start talking about Zane Blackman, how long has Sammy's husband, how long has he been a minister? I mean, she was married to a minister, and most people think you're married in a Christian marriage, it's going to last the rest of your life, or the rest of your physical experience. But how long has Sammy's husband been a minister when their relationship starts to fall apart? I mean, that's not something you often hear about.
Well, they're both young, you know. Even her husband was young. You know, at the time that he went into ministry. So, you know, not every minister, as I'm sure you know, is genuine. So, you know, I tried to show that her husband, being a minister, he was two-faced. You know, so he was the church. But another way with her, like she was very insulting to her when they would get along. So in public, he would hug and kiss her and all of that. When they got home, if she, you know, took one of his children to the bathroom and was back there too long, you know, he was accusing her of sneaking back there to meet somebody, you know, another man at the church, and, you know, telling her she looked like a clown in makeup and that kind of stuff. But then after he would tell Samai that he looked like a clown, he would then go on to talk about how good another woman looked in her makeup. You know, so he was a very abusive, two-faced type of guy. So I wanted the readers to question if he could be that insincere with her. Was he really being sincere with God? You know, how could you treat someone you love that way and still have, you know, how could you have a real relationship with the Lord, you know?
You know what, Mary, what I'm going to ask you to do? I just want to check one more thing. I've reached out to Blog Talk Radio. Can you hang up and try to dial back in? I don't know. And if you're on a cell phone, can you try a landline phone? I just want to make sure. Perhaps it might be on your line. I'm not sure. The static, it lightens up when I'm talking. So if you don't mind, and then I'll keep the show going until you dial back in. If you could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. To off the shelf. Yes, I want to see if the static does break up, and I still do hear it. So if she hung up, I apologize to our listeners. It's not on my phone, and it sounds like it went away. So maybe it was on Mary's line. I don't know. But if she dials back in, the static appears now that it's completely cleared up. So if she dials back in, we'll know the static was on her line. And I didn't even think to ask her to hang up earlier. I just assumed it was on my end. But we are interviewing with Mary Walker. Lesson learned. Hopefully something will happen in your life this week that might remind you of this experience. And instead of thinking, oh, it's me, or it's the other person, once I figure out it's not me, let me ask the other person if they'll try to do something. We can clear it. I think the static was coming from the other line because it's gone. The static is now gone. So we are honored. We're waiting for her to rejoin with Mary Walker, and she's the author of Never As Good as the First Time, which we're talking about. And the line sounds so wonderful and not quite what it seems. So as soon as she reconnects, I will connect her to the show again. I want to thank all of you for your patience here. I've learned so much on Off the Shelf Radio. But her story, she's talking about the minister, Sammy's husband, who is a minister, and she deliberately made him, his character, not what you would expect a minister to be like. He's married to Sammy, but it seems like he has trouble really loving a person. Because he puts her down, she said, and he'll compliment another woman in the church in front of her. So even though that seems like a hidden way to attack someone, you have to wonder does this person really love? And we know that the scriptures tell us the greatest of these is love. That's what we have to do. We can't just be religious and go to church and say certain things. We have to love. And Mary just rejoined, so let me reconnect her, and hopefully the static doesn't return. Hi, Mary. The static went away, so let's see if it stays gone. I was telling our listeners I didn't even think to ask you to hang up earlier and dial back in, but in the future I'll know to do that. But the line has cleared up. Yeah, so it's cleared up. So you were telling us about Sammy, her husband. You deliberately created him into this flawed character. So, which you wouldn't expect. From a minister. But I also wanted to ask you, why did Sammy let her work skills erode? Did she expect her husband? She knows he's not authentic in his love for her. Did she expect him to take care of her as if she was a child? And I'm asking you that. I heard this in a movie, God is Real, and I also went out and got the book, The Cinderella Complex, and it says how subconsciously women expect a man to take care of them, and we generally are attracted to and look for a man who will be that extended father and will take care of us, even if we have another job. And if a man loses his job, we get upset because now, you won't be able to take care of me anymore. Is she dealing with something like this? Why did she let her work skills erode so much just because she was married?
Well, another thing I explore a little bit is Samai's home life before she left to marry Ian, who was her ex-husband. She didn't really have a good relationship with her mom. So I think Ian was both a self-esteem builder for her. She was going to marry a minister. She would show her family that, yes, she could get a good man. And I think she let those things drive her to marry Ian. So she really didn't have very many skills when she married him. But no, to answer your question, she was not looking for Prince Charming to come and take care of her in that way. I think she wanted him to rescue her from the life she knew and thought that by him being a minister, it would be ideal, but he wasn't who she thought he should be. And so she never really had any skills that she could fall back on. But, so go ahead.
You know what's amazing? We don't see ourselves doing this. I recently read everything we do, we're the center of it. And even the friends we seek out, it's how can this benefit me? We generally do it unconsciously. We do it unconsciously. We think we're being noble and good and giving. And why do people wipe their feet off on me and take advantage of me? But everything we do, we look out at the world. How can this person add to my life? How can this person add to my life? And the people who we think won't add to our life, those are the people we walk by and dismiss. So we all are guilty. We all are guilty of it. Now, what is it about Zane? He's totally different from Sammy's husband. What is it about Zane Blackman what grabs her attention? She's married to a minister. You said she grew up somewhat naive. She's from Ohio. You don't go a lot into her background, but why would she pay Zane any attention? They don't seem to be anything alike.
True. And there was the attraction. I'm sure you've heard opposites attract. So with her, it was opposites attract to the nth degree. Now, I don't know if some of our listeners have met that one guy who rings your bell. He doesn't even have to speak to you, but when you see him, something ignites automatically. That chemistry starts firing, and that curiosity starts gaining momentum, and you just want to know what it is about this guy that makes you feel the way that you do. So that chemistry is the initial thing that draws you to someone who's opposite, at least in my world that I created for this character. And I've heard some people say this in real life. So it wasn't about who he was. It was initially about his good looks. He was devastatingly handsome. And then they had this connection, this immediate attraction going both ways. So, and it's weird how they went to high school together and didn't experience that. Well, on a limited basis, maybe they did, but they never got together in high school. So this attraction, I think, was curiosity. It was chemical, and it was also just one of those things, And I think in life we're presented with opportunities all the time. Some opportunities will lead us up toward good goals in our life and things that will take us down a path that will be rewarding. And then there are those things and choices that come our way that we know aren't good for us deep inside. Something is telling us, don't go that way. But we ignore that because the thrill of it all seems to outweigh the risk of getting into something you really can't handle. And I think that's what happened with Samai when she met Zane. She had some warning bells going off, but the thrill of it all, she kind of pushed those down. And we all have those kinds of choices, and we know that something's not good for us, but we want to explore it anyway. And sometimes we end up being in a trap that we didn't intend to get into.
Wow. Now, see, this story is sounding like it's piquing my interest. Tell me that Sammy is smart enough that I see shows on TV, real life shows of people who do things for they bring somebody into their life, and when I tell you it changes everything. Some people get locked, start a relationship with somebody. I mean, it gets very bad, even though it might start off good. Tell me, Sammy, don't give the story away. Is she smart enough to pump the brakes before it's too late?
How can I answer that, Denise, without giving away the story? That is a very interesting question. I'll give you the answer this way. I had an interview with Joey Pinkney when Never as Good as the First Time first came out, and he absolutely loved Zane Blackman's character, and he said that the story would not have been what it had been had Zane not been who he was. Now, I love Zane Blackman too. We were talking about earlier how characters tell you who they want to be. Zane was one of those people who was always talking to me, telling me, this is who he is. And it was fun following and developing Zane. But Joey, he said that Zane was the gasoline to Samai's fire. So if that tells you anything about your question, he kind of, fueled and fanned the flames of the side of Samai that she didn't know existed. He kind of brought to life this other persona that was inside of her. Like, for example, Samai was a Christian, so she wasn't really around a lot of cuss words. So when Zane first dropped the F-bomb on her, it shocked her. She was like, oh my, she hung up on him because she was like, no, I don't talk like that, and don't talk like that to me. But eventually, her journey, she started using that word, without giving the story away. It is one of those situations where, unfortunately, she made a wrong choice in deciding to engage with Zane.
But Zane, you know what? It sounds.
Go ahead.
It sounds. It sounds that way, and I sit here with a little bit of regret. But just listening to you so far through the interview, we have about 10 minutes to go. I'm going to say that you do teach a lesson, though. There's a lesson the reader. You and this is the important thing. And there was an author who writes a TV show who was doing workshops. She said, first of all, you got to make people care about your characters. They have to care about your characters. And then what her trick is, she's on national TV, she said, then you kill off a character that people really care about. So it's almost like you make people really care about a character, then the character has to do something that the viewer or the reader is like, oh, no.
Right. Well, to me, Denise, that sounds kind of risky to me, because what if the people love that character so much they ain't gonna watch the show no more? You know. And
she's got a hit TV series. I think she writes Scandal. I think she writes Scandal, and there's another one. Okay. She said that's her trick.
Oh, wow. Well, it works for her, so, you know, obviously those shows are still strong. But I think as a writer who's trying to sell books, you got to be careful. Now, eventually, I think you can do that with books, because I've seen writers do that. I've seen writers either make a character change into someone, you know, or show a side of themselves that you didn't know existed. And I think I do that a little bit with Samai, because
it sounds like you do.
Yeah, it's definitely.
It sounds like you do sort of.
Go ahead.
The reader doesn't know what's coming next, and you keep them hooked. Just listen to you talk about the book. My interest has gone through the roof. When I think about Sam, how she started, she meets Zane, and how she's. I mean, it's like, and this happens to people in real life. They meet somebody, and then you see them a year later, and you're like, you're nothing like you used to be. You're nothing like you used to be. Can you give us? I want our listeners to learn about Not Quite What It Seems as well. Can you give us a brief introduction to Not Quite What It Seems? And this far through the show, if people are like me, they want to go out and get a copy of Never as Good as the First Time. But can you now give us a brief introduction to Not Quite What It Seems?
Yes, so Not Quite What It Seems is kind of a sequel to Never as Good as the First Time, which I kind of wanted it to be able to stand on its own, but Never as Good as, or Not Quite What It Seems is about Samai Collins' daughter, Jaden, who's prominent in the story, Never as Good as the First Time. She's now a grown-up, and she's in her own relationship. And she's become a very successful dancer. In fact, she's been invited to audition for Alvin Ailey's dance company for a role in a particular musical. And so Not Quite What It Seems is about Taji Hyatt Kiko, who is Jaden's love interest, and Taji is black and Japanese, and so his father is somewhat of a shady character, but the grandfather is very traditional Japanese. So he wants Taji to marry someone who's traditional and who does not want a career but wants to stay home and be the wife and the mom. And so Taji at first presents that he's not, thinking about that. He wants Jaden to do what she wants to do as far as her career and all of that. But he's really giving in secretly to his grandfather's desire to have a wife who's traditional. So some things happen, and it appears that Taji may have sabotaged Jaden's opportunity to audition for this musical. And so it's all about their breakup. She moves. She doesn't give him a chance to explain what happened ever. So she breaks up with him, and then she makes this move to Florida because in the back of her mind there are some things in Florida that she wants answers to, like her father, who her real father is, and all of that. She goes off in that direction. She meets up with some of her cousins, her Florida cousins, who treat her like gold. But on the flight over there, she also meets another character who falls in love with her because Jaden's very beautiful, and he seemingly falls in love with her. He's a rich guy. He has a lot of money. So it's all about whether Jaden can get back on track and whether Taji and she will get back together, or if, if things are going to keep her and Taji apart. Are there differences greater than what they have in common, and will they ever get back together, or will Jaden just end up going off with this guy that she met on the plane?
Oh my goodness! I had to ask you. Now she's going back through her past. Why can't she move forward? When I was doing the research for the show, it's like she can't move forward until she faces her past. Why can't she? And it sounds, when you go back to her mother, Sammy, that Sammy's kept some secrets from her. And something tells me, does Zane make an appearance? And not quite what it seems.
None of the characters, and some of my readers weren't too happy about that. I didn't even have her brothers. Jaden's brothers were not in this. Her mom was not in this. I really wanted it to be about her.
Okay.
Because there are secrets. You're right. There's secrets about who her dad is, and secrets about something that happened to Jaden when she was a child that she's having to deal with, and how she's dealing with that, and how, you talked about earlier about how we couldn't let distractions and things that come in our life, they're not always distractions. Sometimes they're tragedies, and something tragic happened to Jaden when she was younger. So it's all about, will we allow those things that come upon us and happen to us stop us from what we're supposed to be and who we're supposed to be and who God created us to be, or will we overcome that and move forward and be all that we're meant to be? So that's the dynamic of what Jaden is dealing with, as well as her past issues with her mom. So that's pretty much what Not Quite What It Seems is about.
I appreciate the fact that your story writing takes on human, and we were talking about Elin Harris. When you're a great writer, you transcend a small demographic. You just do. And I think about William Shakespeare and other great writers, James Baldwin. You speak to the human condition. And you don't have to fit a demographic to understand and get something out of the story, but you also speak to real life things that humans that we deal with. So I appreciate that. Will there be a sequel, Mary, to Not Quite What It Seems? Are you working on a sequel to the book?
Not really working on a sequel to Never as Good as the First Time, or Not Quite What It Seems. And there's a story behind that as well. I am working on some other projects. Because I've been out of the spotlight, I've not stopped writing, because that's what writers do. We write. So I have probably 20 projects that haven't been published. I'm working on plays, 2 that I'm very proud of and hope to take nationally. But we don't really have time to talk about, what's coming. Unfortunately, we had that problem with my phone, so it was my fault and not yours. But I really wanted to thank you.
No, it's not about fault.
I really wanted to thank you, Denise, for reaching out to me. Wanted to ask the audience to keep my nephew and niece in prayer. They had some things happen to them this weekend, but just bunches of thanks to you, because I really feel motivated this year to get back on the bus or on the horse and start putting my works out there again. So I am going to be doing that, and hopefully you will be hearing from me soon in that arena.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Where can our off-the-shelf listeners get copies of your books?
So they can get them on Amazon.com. They can get them on my publisher's website, the one that you gave at the beginning of the show, Macmillan Publishing. And they're also available in ebook form. So I would suggest that the audience just Google the book titles, and they'll pop up with everywhere that they can be purchased.
And so to our listeners, again, I want to spell her name. It's Mary, M-A-R-I, not Y, M-A-R-I, Walker, W-A-L-K-E-R. And I'm going to ask Mary before she closes where we can find her on social media. But the titles of her books, when you search for them, are Never as Good as the First Time and Not Quite What It Seems If You Were. We had static early. I'm going to try to reschedule Mary again. But in the end, if you listen to her talk about her books, you can see how intriguing her books are. So I encourage you again, Mary, M-A-R-I, Walker, and the title of her books, Never as Good as the First Time and Not Quite What It Seems. Sammy makes an appearance and Zane and Never as Good as the First Time. And Sammy's daughter, Jaden, makes an appearance and Not Quite What It Seems. And Mary says she's working on 2 plays. So our listeners can keep up with you, Mary, in real time, very quickly. They can keep up with you. Just go on anytime they want to. Can you tell us what social networks that you're on and how people can find you there?
Well, I'm trying to do better about that as well. I'm on Facebook. They can definitely follow me on Facebook. I have Instagram and Twitter, which I'm going to be more active on moving forward. But they can definitely follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and they can always contact me, instant message me on Facebook.
Okay, well, we want to thank Mary Walker, and once the show finishes streaming, you all can tune into the show. I hope you can hear Mary through the interview. I hope people do listen to the show, so you might learn something for your own personal life when you're coming into distractions or static, to keep going forward and try different things until it works, and you can come to a great conclusion. That's how nothing is just straightforward and smooth. We want it to be, but if you let distractions and things stop you, you might not finish anything. So you gotta keep going. We are honored that we had Mary, and I'm going to spell her name again because we always want to say M-A-R-Y. Somebody's still going to type that in.
Right, they do all the time.
So much. But M-A-R-I, Walker, and she is the author of Never as Good as the First Time and Not Quite What It Seems. And if you put that up in the search engines, she will come up right away. So we thank her for being here with us. I'm going to work to reschedule her. So those of you who want to hear her in her entirety, and her just amazing Mary Walker, you can hear her clearly all the way through, but encourage you to listen to today's show when it finishes streaming. For those who came in late in the show, you can listen to it once it finishes again streaming. It'll be up in its entirety. Thank you to Mary. Please go out and get a copy of her books. Her characters sound, and it's what she has happened to her characters that you can think either about your life or somebody else's and say, wow, that sounds so familiar. And maybe in her story you'll find an answer to a situation that you're in right now, even through a novel. I know it's happened to me. So we want to thank Mary, and as I always tell you guys, you are awesome, you're amazing, you are incredible. Happy Valentine's Day. Go out and create a fabulous day and an amazing week for yourself. Mary, I'll shoot you an email. Bye for now.
All right. Thank you.